All right. Good morning and welcome to Woodland Fitness. I'm going to mess with the mic a little bit and we're going to hope that this is going to make the audio just a little bit better. Last week was still a little rough. It didn't help that my voice was pretty shot. And this week I put off recording my podcast because my voice hasn't gotten any better. I've been sick all week this week. In fact, today I am still in sweatpants and a hoodie and just trying to sleep most of this off. Hopefully it'll go away. Not a super fun week. I've had a fever a few days out of the week and coughing fits all week to keep me up. So if my voice sounds a little rough, that's because I've been coughing all week, and I will try to keep the coughing to a minimum here on this episode. Honestly, I wasn't really sure what I was going to cover this week because, like I said, I was putting it off, kind of hoping my voice would clear up a little bit more than it has. And I was planning on replacing some of my audio equipment to improve the audio for the podcast. And I just haven't gotten around to that. There's only so much I can do at one time. I've thrown up a few more panels back behind me, and there's a nice Japanese watercolor painting in front of me that are also the same acoustic panel material. Kind of livens up this room a little bit. And unfortunately, this bright white light is also making me look more pale than I already do from being sick. So, the topic that I am going to cover today, though, is progressive overload. I wanted to cover this topic because, one, it's very important to making progress in the gym, and two, it's not something that needs like a really long episode to cover it in its entirety. The idea of progressive overload is generally that we're making progress in some measurable way from week to week. I actually had a guy that he wasn't a client of mine, he was someone I was meeting with because my gym does, what's the word? Basically, interviews that you can do with a personal trainer where you can get kind of an idea. It's one of our ways as a gym to pitch personal training, to show that value to people who may not normally consider personal training. The guy that I was talking to, I asked him if he kept track of his workouts at all, and he told me no, that he didn't record anything, that he didn't know what weights he used on a regular basis, that he didn't know what exercises he did each week. And I also had one of my clients ask me, because his mom asked him why we were doing the same exercises every week and why we weren't mixing it up all the time. And both of these topics kind of come together because they come to the idea of progressive overload. There's several different ways that you can track overload. However, the big part of that is that you are tracking. The saying goes that what is measured is what will grow. So the things that we write down, the things that we measure, the things that we track are the things that we're going to see progress in. So when we're doing weightlifting specifically, there's a few different ways that we can make progress. Progressive overload is typically referred to as increasing the weight from week to week. However, there's only so long that you can do that. And at some point, you wind up plateauing in that weight, and it's really hard to budget all. And there's some exercises that it's way harder to move the weight up than it is other exercises. Most barbell exercises, it's not too hard to move the weight up week to week as long as you start at a fairly low weight. Sorry about that. I should be good for the rest of the episode, hopefully. But when we're looking at dumbbell exercises, those don't jump up the same way, and the percentage of jump is quite a bit more. So, for instance, if we're moving from 5-pound dumbbell to a 10-pound dumbbell, you're looking at making it technically a 5-pound jump. However, you're doubling the weight. Whereas if you're going from 45 pounds on the barbell to 50 pounds, that jump is not the same. And it feels different too, especially depending on the muscle that you're targeting. So a few of the different ways that we can make progressive overload is we can increase reps until we feel comfortable enough to increase the weight, or we can increase total number of sets. So for instance, usually what this looks like in a program is somebody will write it out, this exercise for 10 to 12 reps. So you start with a weight that you can only do for 10 reps, and then you work up to being able to do 12 reps with that weight, and then you bump up the weight. Or if you have it in your program as 3 to 5 sets of 10 to 12 reps, you'll start out with 3 sets of 10 reps. You'll work up to 12 reps, and then you'll do 4 sets of 10 reps. You'll work up to 12 reps, 5 sets of 10 reps, work up to 12 reps, and then you'll drop it back down to 3 sets of 10 reps, but you'll increase the weight. These are all different ways that you can progress as you're increasing the weight. And the reason progressive overload is so important is because when we're in the gym, our goal is to create a demand for our body to grow muscle. I'm going to throw a little bit of nerd in there. At one point in Dragon Ball, Goku states that power comes to a need, not to a want. And that applies to the gym as well. Muscle comes to a need, not a want. So you're not going to grow muscle just because you want to grow muscle. You can eat all the protein in the world. However, eating protein only gives you a small spike in muscle protein synthesis compared to lifting weights. But your body will only do what it needs to do to achieve a certain adaptation. Our bodies don't like change as a general rule. Our bodies try to maintain, this is a phrase I've used before, homeostasis, where it wants a steady, almost constant state inside of the body. And so unless we're putting a demand on our bodies that requires more muscle and tells our body that we are putting more strain on it than it can handle right now, and it needs to build more muscle to be able to keep up with that strain and that adaptation, we're going to plateau and we're not going to see any muscle growth. Now, this is important for multiple different goals. Obviously, if your main goal is muscle growth, it's going to be super important to focus on this adaptation. However, if your goal is weight loss, this is also important because when we're looking at muscle is a much more calorically demanding tissue than almost any other tissue in our body. So the more muscle you have on your body, this is kind of a throwback to a few episodes ago, it's been a while, but the more muscle you have on your body, the higher your resting metabolic rate is. So that means that is more calories that your body is burning at rest than if you had less muscle. Jeez. All right. More than likely, I'm going to have to cover this topic again at some point because this cough is just disgusting. Progressive overload is really important, and it's one of the founding principles of weightlifting. Now, if you currently are working a program where you've gone in and done the same weight every single day for the last 3 years and haven't seen any progress, progressive overload is the reason why. What we want to do is we want to take what you're doing right now, we want to increase the weight a little bit. So either add a couple extra reps, add an extra set, or bump that weight up because you can handle more than you think you can. And honestly, this week, I want you to just take a look at your program, see what changes you can make to make progress. See if you're keeping track of your weights at all, because keeping track of your weights is the only way you're going to know whether or not you're making progress over time. If you aren't tracking anything, start tracking just to see where you're at right now. I would put tracking weights as one of the most important things that you can do while you're at the gym, because you could be doing the same weight, or you could be even doing less weight than you normally do, but you just don't know because you swapped a machine and you're just kind of going off of how it feels. Now, we'll go into this a little bit more, and I think this topic by itself deserves its own episode. The importance of being on a specific program versus kind of just doing willy-nilly what you want to do every single week and changing up exercises all the time. I'll talk about that. Let's go ahead and plan on next week. It'll be its whole own episode because that is a big topic and there's a lot to cover in there. All right. Y'all have a great week and try not to get sick out there. I'll see you next week. Good.